So, you just finished your campaign. Just finished the final adventure, the boss is dead, the players did a great job, you ran a great game, congratulations, or maybe this is the first time you're ever looking to put together a new campaign. But either way, you have some time now, you're thinking about it, what do you want to do for your next campaign? I know, it's been a little bit since I've made a video. I'm sorry about that. I have not been running. My game actually just finished up a week or two ago, and so I was busy pulling together all the things that had to happen for that, and then actually running it, and then just kind of taking a break. That is one of the things, by the way, that's going to be in this video is taking a break, but no spoilers. So yeah, here you are. You have finished a game or you're about to put together your first homebrew campaign ever, and you're trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I do that? How do I put it together? And because it's the situation that I am in right now, I figured, hey, this is a good topic to make a video on, so here we are. God, how thirsty I get making videos. So it seems like there's a lot to cover, there's a lot to tackle. How do you handle? What do I do next? Where do I start my game? What kind of story am I going to tell? And it is kind of a lot to tackle. And so I don't have, spoilers for the whole video basically, I don't have the right answer. I don't have the thing that you should do for how do you figure out what you're gonna do for your next homebrew campaign. I don't know. But I have some ideas of my own that I use, so I figured I would share those with you, and they'd be a good starting point for you to say, that'll work, maybe that won't, and steal some stuff from me, because that's how DMs get better, is we steal from one another. And here we go. So what do I do? Well, I advise taking a break. You just ran a game. It's been months, maybe years since you have had a bit of a break here. I think breaks are really important to prevent DM burnout. It's one of my most important things. Obviously, playing in a game is really, really nice, but if you are DMing week in, week out, and I run a weekly game, if you are running week in and week out with no breaks, that's a really good way to get burned out. Sometimes you just want to stop playing D&D. I know that maybe is a little controversial in the D&D community, but one hobby is not the end-all be-all of your entire life. So it's okay to just not play D&D for a month or 3 or 6 or a year. So our game just ended about a week or two ago, and we are going to start up. I have September as what I've told the players. I have not told them like the first weekend in September is when we're going to play. I don't know. But I said September. So that gives me some time to first off take a break and then start simmering on ideas and thinking about things. And I think that's a really important process. Give yourself time to think about ideas. So I passed out like a feedback form for my players, and it was just some things like what were NPCs you really enjoyed, or what were memorable combats, very open-ended questions like, was there anything you found frustrating in the campaign? And I don't know how much of it was going to be useful, you know, especially before I sent it out. But after I sent it out, I could start to see what players were answering, and I tried to figure out why. I didn't ask them why they liked this or why they liked that, because if you ask them why, they all of a sudden, they would come up with an answer when maybe they didn't have one before. But when you say, what was a combat you liked? And they're like, that Kraken fight was really cool. I can go, great. I remember the Kraken fight. I will deduce what players would enjoy about that, because I think I would come up with better answers than they would if they were put on the spot trying to come up with something. But maybe you have different players. So there were things like that. And then I asked them questions about what kind of a thing do you want to do in the next campaign? What are differences you want to have between this game and the next? Because if you just run the same game over and over and over again, I think you'd get really good at running that one game, but you're also missing out, I think, on a lot of what D&D can be. And so I like to run different games. You know, I did a game where we saved the village, and then I did a game where we explored the Southern Isles kind of Caribbean area, and then I did a game where we were a special forces strike force for a conquering emperor. Very different games. And so I think that there's a lot of fun to be had in different varieties. Feel, flavor, tone, all of these things can change. And if you are worried about, well, I'm not a good enough DM to pull off that high politics, big city kind of game, that's okay. You won't be ready to do it until after you have done it.
What did he just say? Check the prompter.
Let me repeat that for emphasis. There are lots of things in life that you are not ready to do until after you've already done it. Meaning the first time you do it, you're not going to be very good at it. But that's okay. It's a learning experience. You'll be better at it as you go, as you practice, as you learn. So don't be afraid to take big swings, go for the fences, other sports things, sports terms. Man, I miss sports. And figure out, what do I want this game to be about? So all of the players, one of the things that I gave my players as an option is sort of a slider of like the difference between like gritty realism and heroic fantasy, like the Lord of the Rings, being able to just kind of keep going. And I said, our current game on a scale of like 1 is gritty realism and 10 is heroic fantasy, I said our game right now is probably about a 7. So what do you want to do in the next game? And everybody sort of said like 3, 4, got 1 5 in there. And so people kind of wanted a bit more of a gritty, intense, maybe a little dark kind of game. And so I'm trying to figure out, what do I want to do with that? Because I don't really like the super dark, kind of gritty, everyone dies, it's terrible, the world sucks kind of fantasy. It's just not my jam. I really enjoy the heroes doing the heroic thing and it works out in the end, and valor and nobility. And I love those kinds of things as a DM, but I recognize I'm not the only person at this game. I'm not writing a book. And so I'm trying to put together now a game that my players all want to play and I believe in. Because I just really don't think you can run a good game if you don't love it, if you don't believe in it. I'm not at all into Cthulhu and any of that stuff, and so running a Call of Cthulhu game, I would suck at it. I'd be really bad at it because I wouldn't love it. And so it's important to love whatever you are going to run, or at least be excited about. You don't have to love it. So then I get input and ideas from my players, and one of the things that I stole from Reddit, maybe? Probably a subreddit somewhere. Somebody had the idea of saying, what if you gave your players the opportunity to pick what they fought, what they did, what they got to encounter in the game? And their idea was, let the players pick a single creature or a monster and you will have that monster show up in the game somewhere. And I thought, that's a brilliant idea. That's very cool. And so you can pull on some of that for your players and for inspiration. And so I put that question in that little form as well. And, had the players, pick a creature or whatever. I got to choose if they were a friendly NPC or a monster trying to kill them or a villain or whatever. But they got to choose what they encountered. I got to choose in which way they encounter it. So you're taking a break, you're getting ideas from your players. To me, I think about putting together a new campaign. This might be really weird. I've been doing a lot of cooking lately because quarantine. I think about it like putting together a crock pot meal, where you're kind of getting your ingredients together, getting everything prepared, and then you put it in the crock pot and you let it simmer for like 5-6 weeks. That's too long for a crockpot meal, by the way. I was making an analogy. But you put it together in your crockpot and you let it simmer, and then you kind of get it together and you shred the chicken, or you do whatever you need to do. You add that one final ingredient kind of at the end, and then you're ready to eat. And so that is what I like to do. So that process of figuring out, what do the players want to play, what do they want to do, what kind of characters are they going to make. I would have loved if my players could have just kind of kept it to themselves for what kind of character they were going to play until we all got together for session 0 and they were all checking out ideas. That would have been neat. They didn't do that. I think the longest anyone waited after the game had ended to tell me what their next character was going to be was like 36 hours.
Patience, Iago, patience.
So I guess they were eager to play new characters, but I can't begrudge them. I do the same thing as a player. But so I have some of their ideas for what they want to do for characters and their backstories and things like that. So that's information for me to build on as well. And then I figure out, where do I want this to take place in my setting. I run a homebrew setting that I have designed. And so, I get to look around and figure out what spots do I think are interesting or would be working well for this story, or set up anything, or just an area we haven't been to yet. And so that is what I chose for this coming campaign, is a place that I have a lot of affection for. It's the place with all the Dragonborn. I love Dragonborn. And we haven't really been there in my campaign yet, and so I want to run a game there. So then I figure out all kinds of backstory stuff about this area. What's going on over here? Who's in charge over here? What's their culture like? And then I immerse myself in lots of those different kinds of stories. The previous game had a very Greek theme, so I was reading lots of Greek stories. I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I was reading Greek mythology, all kinds of stuff, just to kind of get my mindset in the right culture and feel and tone of the game. And that is, obviously these are things that I do. I don't know if they would work for you or not. So So we take a break, we figure out what the players want to do, we get a feel for the tone, for the region, and everything like that. And then I start to think about specifics. I think about bad guys. Who's here? What are they trying to do? What do they want? What are different important factions, and who are the people that represent them? Who do I want the players to come into contact with? How do I figure those things out, though? How do you just come up with a villain out of thin air or a cool NPC? I watch movies, I play video games, I watch other people play D&D, and I go, that's a cool idea, I'm gonna steal it. Or that's almost a cool idea, let me change it a little bit and make it even better. And so this is a great time for you to be taking notes as you're watching movies and be like, oh man, that's a really cool plot from, I don't know, The Godfather. What if I took that scene, that character, that conflict, and I put it in my D&D game? It works even better when you take it from something like The Godfather that is not fantasy, that the players might not expect. Like if you take something from Lord of the Rings, the players are going to see that coming. But if you take something from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the players probably won't suspect it because it's not exactly fantasy, though I guess 20,000 Leagues kind of is fantasy. It's kind of sci-fi, like old school sci-fi. I don't know. Either way, pick something that is really cool, a character you love, just a joke that was hilarious, an interesting magic item or ability that somebody used in a sci-fi fighting movie or whatever. And you go, that's really cool. Anything can be inspiration. Comic books and stories. And I'm reading through a book series that I loved when I was a kid. And it's cool because I haven't read it in a long, long time, but I'm getting lots of little ideas and stuff as I'm remembering all the world building that was put into this series. And it's kind of more obscure, so I don't know if the players have read it and all kinds of that stuff. So it's really cool now to get to observe everything and think about it for, villains and plot input and all kinds of different ideas. Mine everything you're consuming. Mine, not mine.
Miners, not miners.
All right, I got kind of hyped up there, but yes, it is a good opportunity for you to look around and think, that's cool, I'm going to stick it in my game, because that's what D&D is for. It's for creating cool experiences and telling fun stories, hanging out with your friends, all that wonderful, awesome stuff. So those are my big advice for things you can do for how do you run a game. I also, because I really enjoy writing fiction, I like to write kind of an epilogue for the campaign that just ended, what just happened and how was the world impacted, etc. And then also I like to write kind of a prologue. This is sort of the thinking through like the steady state world, and there's got to be a great video out there for you to watch somewhere on like the steady state world and the call to action, inciting incident, all those different like super generic storytelling devices. Just look up those terms and you'll find somebody explaining them better than I would. But those are really important, trying to figure out what is your world like and then what changed so that now there is adventure and what forces the players to answer that call to adventure. All of those things are really cool. I start to think about what contexts are they going to be in for my story. So you take a break. You figure out what your characters want to do, you think through the feel and flavor of this area, of this setting, you mine everything that you are watching for story ideas, character ideas, conflicts, all kinds of things, and you just simmer on it. You just simmer on it. I don't have to, figure out what exactly is this connection or that connection. I have like a document that has all of my ideas in it, and I just kind of like write down an idea and go like, that seems pretty cool. Battle in front of a lava waterfall, and then I just I put that in there, and I don't know where that's going to come into play. I don't know. Lots of different factions warring against each other. Some are good, ? Some are bad, ! And that's all I put in the document, and I don't know how that's going to come into play. But I just sort of put those things in there and then let them all kind of percolate, and I think about them and then figure out how am I going to put all these together in a cool and interesting narrative. So those are some of my personal, sort of ways I'm going about creating a campaign at a very high level. I may make more campaign creation videos as I get closer and closer to making mine. Again, I said September, so we've got a little while until we're going to actually start running. First thing we're going to do is get our session 0 all together, because we do have a new player joining the group. But I'm going to start thinking about what do I want the game to be about and be you like and what kinds of cool ideas am I going to write down. And I would share those with you, but my players might watch these videos, and it's up to you to come up with your own ideas. Obviously, stealing from other DMs is really cool and great, but also the more ideas you come up with, the more you will love it and the more it'll be yours. So go watch movies, read books, read comic books, watch other people play D&D, consume stories of every kind, and theater is a great place for all these. Mythology, great ideas can be stolen from there. So go and consume ideas, come up with your own, riffing off of other things, and tell me about the next game you want to run, the next campaign you're going to put together. What kind of a tagline does it have? I don't really have a good tagline for my game right now in terms of like heroes in this place doing this thing. I don't know yet. But what is a game you are really excited to run? Let me know. I probably won't steal it. I have kind of my own ideas, but I think it's a cool chance for people to say, oh man, this idea that I have that I'm never going to run probably. Well, maybe it'll be your next campaign. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.